Hong Kong's trade promotion body has opened applications for its 2026 edition of its Startup Express program, which are efforts at stepping up to help local tech ventures break into overseas markets and secure commercial partnerships. So in order to be eligible, you've got to be a startup with funding under $10 million, which is, quite a bit of money, and essentially, and have a valid registration over in the Hong Kong space. They've been doing this for a number of years. They take applicants from everywhere, hundreds of them, maybe even thousands, and they narrow it down to just 10 winners. And then those winners, of course, get the assistance that they get in terms of getting exposed to other markets. Also, we talked about Block. Of course, we're mentioned this at the top of the hour. Jack Dorsey making that announcement that Block will be cutting 4,000 employees from its roster as a result of its artificial intelligence productivity tools that he says can help the company achieve its productivity goals with less staff. Let's talk to our guest, Ashley Barrett, Managing Director of the Blank Table Group LLC. She joins us from New Jersey. She's been in Startup America for about a decade, worked in overseeing IT teams. She's done mergers and acquisitions. She's done so many startup deals. She's funded so many startups. Ashley, thank you so much, first of all, for waking up so early in New Jersey and joining us. Good morning to you. Thank you very much. I wanted to get your thoughts on what they're doing over in Hong Kong. What the trade body is doing to help startups.
I think it's great. I think that government should get involved, especially when it comes to trying to break into overseas. They have the relationships on a big and a major level. So I think that, every government that wants to see their people move forward should be getting involved, especially at the early stage.
Now, I know they're trying to, as far as the winners of that program, they are going to be prepped to scale overseas. If you're a startup founder with a tech idea, is scaling overseas on the priority list?
It's the whole point. When people invest in startups, the whole goal is to scale fast and scale big. So I think that that's a major piece of it is, if I'm funding a startup, I expect it to 10x. So it should scale beyond its local market.
All right. Now, you've spent some time, I know you're in New Jersey, but before you left for Jersey, you were in Lagos. You spent quite a bit of time on the continent. What's been your observation with respect to the hurdles that tech founders in Nigeria or Nairobi or wherever they are in African continent are facing? What's been your observation?
I can only speak to Lagos. I'm going to Nairobi in April, so I can circle back on that. But Lagos, I think the biggest thing I saw on the ground is two things, which everyone thinks they need money, and newsflash, they don't, I don't think, especially with AI injected in things, when you can build apps with low-code tools. But I think the biggest issues I've seen is just a lack of foundation and infrastructure. There's a knowledge that I expect startup founders to have. There's books I expect them to have read. And it's so clear after one or two questions that a lot of startups founders just had an idea and they were all of a sudden a founder. So I think there's a big knowledge gap or infrastructure missing. And I think the second thing is, oddly enough, which was super surprising to me, the ability to get scrappy and do things. I've had a lot of startup founders that looked at me like I had 10 heads when I suggested they go out and talk to their users, which is a basic thing that you should be doing. So yeah, those would be my two.
So if you can maybe flesh out the first point. So for example, I hate filling out forms, Ashley. I don't like when I go do my dry cleaning or I go visit a firm, they'll make you pull out a pen and paper and start writing stuff. I don't even like going to banks, right? If I have a startup idea to automate everything, so where you want to, whatever it is, whether it's dry cleaning or you go visit somewhere, just scan my face and just get my data. You're saying I need to read some books. I need to take some time to I shouldn't just jump in. Is that what you're saying before you get into the game?
Yeah, I think understanding what a startup is non-existent. I think everybody thinks a business is a startup, and not understanding that a startup, if you're seeking funding, should scale rapidly. So it should solve a problem, like a major problem that people are willing to pay for at scale. And the only way to do that is, one, yes, to have some foundations of how do you make sure that you experiment well and ask the right questions, right? A lot of the startups I talked to fell apart at their validation, right? They said, oh, I surveyed 200 people. Well, what did you ask? If you ask them, oh, do you feel safe when you're in an Uber, when like you're trying to create a safety app, that's not a good question. And so you're validating your assumption and not actually validating that this is the biggest pain that people will pay for.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of boots on the ground work required before getting things off the ground. What about the infrastructure side? I know, like constant electricity and other things you've observed. What role would that play in trying to? You're smiling. What role would that play in trying to get startups to be more efficient?
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so I'm curious to see how AI plays out in Lagos and Nigeria, because I know even the government has their Project Bridge that is to bring internet infrastructure to all of Nigeria, and I love that. It's needed, but it's also just like you don't have constant power in the biggest city here, much less in some rural village. So I think that's what it is. It's like, how are we fixing this layer when this layer is broken?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah, they're doing. Yeah, they're making electricity a priority. That makes a whole lot of sense. You just, it's a basic thing. You need that. Now, very very basic, Ashley. Now, Ashley, I want to ask you this. In Hong Kong, they are. I guess, how do I frame this question? Does it matter the type of startup that you want to bring to market, or should you focus on? So, because in Hong Kong, they're focused on fintech, prop tech, sustainability. They've got like some certain categories there. So yeah, you agree? What do you think as far as what type of problems people want to solve?
I think it depends on where you live and like what the problems and challenges are, right? So prop tech and health tech, I think those are great for Hong Kong, but again, if we're talking Lagos or Nigeria, it's like there's broken basic infrastructure, and I've heard a lot of, I hate to call it fluffy, but like fluffy startup ideas where you're solving like nice to have problems, but it's like I think where my brain is breaking is like, how are we solving all these nice to have problems when, again, there's power outages, like regular. I was staying on Banana Island and there was power outages. Like, what is this?
Thanks for sharing. Look, it needs to be shared. This is stuff that needs to be shared. And again, we thank you for taking the time, with all the time you spend in the United States, helping startups there, to come to the African continent and take a look at these things. And yeah, it's important. Your voice is definitely being heard. So on the matter of AI, since you brought that up, and I was going to get there anyway. I guess you mentioned earlier, I guess it was one of your first answers, that AI is now helping to build apps. Is that a good thing? Because, if you want to fund someone and they've used AI, maybe they'll be honest about it or not. How does that affect the funding equation for you on the other side, the funding side, when you're assessing these startups?
I think it's a great thing. I think AI, like the ability to build an app, is a great equalizer that people need to actually take more advantage of. I saw a startup fest with a lot of people asking for $500,000 in funding. Sorry. And I'm just like, to build an app when you can go vibe code, like go do the work, go learn how to vibe code and go get scrappy. This is the exact thing I'm talking about, is like, to me, I see that funding is not needed as early in stages with the introduction of AI.
Great. Okay. Great point. Hey, so what about, okay, you know what? I'm not going to mention who it is. What about a founder who has already paid a lot of money for an app to be developed? Do they just use AI to check the progress they've made and then switch? What would you suggest there?
I'm not sure if that type of technology exists, but I would say if someone spent a lot of money already to build an app, I mean, you spent it, so you might as well try to use it.
Right.
But I do think that one thing that is just through and through, I need founders to realize is don't go build an app until you validate there's a market and like people are paying you.
Gotcha. The product market fit, right?
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. All right. I do want to round up on AI though. Jack Dorsey, founder of Twitter, he's announcing that Block is cutting 4,000 jobs. AI has led to recently a big sell-off in software stocks. What are you making of? I mean, I know you're talking about how good it is in terms of helping startup founders to build apps, but what about the wider discussion about job losses and things like that? How do you see it?
I think this is a discussion that governments and we need to roundtable and immediately. I think when AI got introduced, everybody did say, hey, like people were ringing alarm bells to say we need to just talk about this and put regulation here. One thing I will say about the job cuts is I'm not surprised. I would expect a lot more because, when a new this is like the internet being introduced, right? AI is such a revolution that it's like when the internet, the .com got introduced, and whenever there's a major disruption or major change, major innovation, there is ripple effects. And yes, one of them is going to be job loss here. So I do think that governments sitting together or public-private partnerships, sitting together to figure out what does the future look like with AI beyond just, okay, everything's automated, but what about our people?
Well, good point. Fair point. All right. My final question for you, Ashley, is, are you seeing enough female founders? Did you see enough female founders coming out of Lagos? What was that? You can be as honest as you want. What's your observation been like? What's the gender balance looking like with in Lagos in terms of tech founders?
I would say that, so I ran a proof lab, and I will say that of the 3 companies, all 3 of them had a female co-founder.
Oh, okay.
So I was actually wowed by that. I actually think that's amazing. What I will say is I don't think I see Lagos or what I'm seeing on the continent is no different than what I'm seeing in America. It's usually male dominated. It is. And that's at the founder level, at the investor level, like they're male dominated spaces. But I will say what I saw in Lagos of female co-founders is amazing.
Great.
Actually.
Great stuff. Ashley, thank you so much for waking up so early. We got to have you on the show live if and when you get back to Lagos. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for the honesty. Really appreciate it. Ashley Barrett, the MD of the Blank Table LLC, joining us from New Jersey. Really, thank you so much.